Psychedelics, or any psychoactive drugs, should not be offered to minors. This is an adult matter. And it then touches upon the issue of adult sovereignty over our own bodies, over our own health and our own consciousness. There are certain matters in our society which are rightly reserved for adults. Psychedelics is one of them. But it would be much easier to regulate these powerful substances and ensure that they don't fall into the hands of children if they were not prohibited by law. It's the war on drugs that creates most of the problems. Anyway, this is the attitude in modern society. But if we go back to ancient Egypt, things are quite different. There is a schoolroom in the Dagla oasis in Lower Egypt that's 1,700 years old. It has Greek writings on its walls which include positive references to drugs, in the context of a story from Homer's Odyssey. In this narrative, Helen of Troy, daughter of Zeus, and famous for her beauty, comforts her guests with a drug, most likely opium.
Straightway she cast into the wine of which they were drinking a drug to quiet all pain and strife and bring forgetfulness of every ill. Whoso should drink this down, when it is mingled in the bowl, would not in the course of that day let a tear fall down over his cheeks.
We would certainly not find that written on any schoolroom wall today. It tells us that there was a different attitude in ancient times to mind-altering substances. Apparently Helen got those from Egypt, at least according to the Odyssey.
For there the earth, the giver of grain, bears greatest store of drugs, many that are healing when mixed, and many that are baneful. There every man is a physician, wise above humankind.
Several figurines of what became known as the poppy goddess have been found in Heraklion on the Greek island of Crete. These were created by the Minoan culture that flourished there until its demise around 1200 BC. A gold signet ring from Knossos, 1500 BC, shows Demeter handing 3 poppy heads to Persephone. So clearly the context of these images alone tells us that there is no disapproval of those substances in ancient societies. None whatsoever. Even as recently as 1797 AD, Samuel Taylor Coleridge wrote a beautiful poem after he used a tincture of opium in search of a cure-all. It is titled Kubla Khan. A few lines.
In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree, where Alph, the sacred river, ran through caverns measureless to man. With music loud and long, I would build that dome in air, that sunny dome, those caves of ice, and all who heard should see them there, and all should cry, beware, beware, his flashing eyes, his floating hair.
Back to Egypt, where the blue water lily, or blue lotus, is found throughout ancient imagery. It is valued not only for its scent or aroma, but also for its hallucinogenic properties. These are not very strong, but they become stronger when you create a tincture of the blue water lily with wine. Traces of a liquid extract of the blue water lily were indeed discovered in alabaster jars that had been stored in the annex of Tutankhamun's tomb since the 14th century BC. Another ancient Egyptian depiction is showing rays of the datura flower, a powerful visionary plant, entering the third eye of a person. A relief on the Temple of Karnak in Luxor in Upper Egypt is also quite fascinating. It shows Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing, next to the ancient Egyptian tree of life. He is writing the name of Pharaoh Seti I on it, effectively saying that the pharaoh has earned a life of millions of years, the eternal life. Dennis McKenna, brother of the late great Terence McKenna, is a very highly qualified ethnopharmacologist. He has identified this tree as Acacia nilotica, not only from this relief but from many others as well. Acacia nilotica is rich in the most powerful visionary substance known to man, which is dimethyltryptamine, or DMT. It takes a little bit of a chemical process though, to get the DMT out of the bark of the tree. It's the view of Egyptologists that the ancient Egyptians would not have had the chemical knowledge to extract DMT from the bark of Acacia nilotica. Yet the very word chemistry comes from the word Kemet, the ancient name for Egypt. Alchemet, the Black Land, became alchemy, where we get the word chemistry from. It's quite likely that the ancient Egyptians absolutely venerated this tree of life for its visionary properties. We have arrived in Tiahuanaco in the Bolivian Andes, where we visit the Calisaya. Most of its statues, known as Ponce monoliths, are in a museum now. In their hands, they're holding these curious objects. Those are not ray guns from the extraterrestrials that built Tiahuanaco, as some might have you believe, but snuff trays for DMT snuffs, or rather Anadenanthera culebrina snuffs. Similar trays are still found in the Amazon jungle to this day and go back thousands and thousands of years. The powdered seeds of Anadenanthera culebrina will send you on a rocket ship to the other side of reality extremely quickly. For a long time it was said there could be no relation between the pyramids of the New World and those of the Old World because the pyramids of the New World are much younger than those of Egypt. If we accept the orthodox dating of Giza at 2500 BC, the discovery and excavation in the past decades of Caral, 60 kilometers north of Lima in Peru, has debunked that argument. Caral is a huge pyramid city with dozens and dozens of pyramids that previously were thought to be hills now excavated and revealed. Caral goes back to 3000 BC and is every bit as old as Giza. As the city was excavated and discovered, archaeologists expected to find a lot of evidence of warfare. After all, that's how powerful city-states establish themselves. But there was no evidence whatsoever of warfare at Caral. Only evidence of positive, harmonious cooperation with their neighbors and an active trade of hallucinogenic snuffs from the Amazon. This great pyramid city in Peru clearly venerated these powerful visionary aids. In December 1541, a conquistador by the name of Francisco de Orellana took a few men, about a dozen of them, out in a long boat on the river for a day's hunting. The river, being the Amazon, disagreed, and took Francisco de Orellana and his crew 4,000 miles to the Atlantic Ocean. They were not able to return and traveled the whole length of the Amazon River. Along the way, Francisco encountered huge cities filled with civilized people who made the most extraordinary arts and crafts. But his report, which he eventually published, was never believed. It was always regarded as something he made up. Everybody knew that the Amazon was pristine jungle. How could there be cities in the Amazon? It was all grandstanding by Orellana. But it turns out that Orellana was absolutely right. There really were cities in the Amazon. It's the tragic clearances of the Amazon today that are revealing the remains of those cities. So why are those cities just in ruins now? It's because smallpox, brought by the Spanish, wiped out the population of those cities. It spread everywhere. It's an interesting fact that smallpox was actually brought by the Spanish into Mexico, but before Pizarro reached Peru, smallpox had already arrived there from Mexico. And it was a catastrophic thing. So there are these huge cities in the heart of the Amazon. It appears that they were pursuing a hunter-gatherer lifestyle mixed with agriculture, able to support urban developments in the heart of the Amazon. Thus, the Amazon should not be regarded as a pristine rainforest but rather as a man-made environment, going back 10,000s of years. Interestingly, there are areas of astonishingly fertile soil. That soil is recognized and sought after by farmers throughout the Amazon because of its fertility. Rainforest soils are normally not very fertile. This is why it's such a bad deal to chop down the Amazon and plant soybeans for the meat industry. Because rainforest soils, once they no longer have the fertilization of the jungle, lose their fertility within a decade or so. That's not the case with terra preta, or black earth. This type of soil turns out to be man-made. It was created by human beings, perhaps going back as far as 11,000 years. And as it regenerates itself through bacteria within the soil, it's still sought out in the Amazon today. Also emerging from the Amazon are huge earthworks. Even stone circles are being found in the Amazon. There's a whole hidden story of the human race within the Amazon jungle. The Amazon is home to more than 150,000 different species of plants and trees. Shamans are the masters of the botanicals of the Amazon. For one of their special recipes, the leaves from a bush called chacruna are being collected. Its scientific name is Psychotria viridis. The leaves of this plant contain substantial quantities of the same substance that is in Acacia nilotica, namely dimethyltryptamine. Pure DMT, the most powerful hallucinogenic known to man. DMT, however, is not normally oral active. There's an enzyme in the gut called monoamine oxidase that switches off DMT on contact. So you could drink a tea made of a bunch of these leaves and it wouldn't have any psychoactive effect on you at all, because the enzyme neutralizes the DMT in the leaves. This is why the leaves are mixed with another plant, which is the ayahuasca vine. The vine is cut into pieces and boiled in a cooking pot along with the leaves and some water from a creek. After several hours of cooking and pouring off, a brew is prepared with orally active DMT. This is caused by the ayahuasca vine containing a monoamine oxidase inhibitor that prevents the enzyme from doing its job. This is rather an advanced feat of ethnopharmacology. With so many different species of plants and animals in the Amazon, imagine what it takes to find the two that, when you put them together, produce an extraordinary visual experience. Consider how you do that by trial and error. What the shamans say is that their ancestors were taught how to do this by the spirits. That the spirit world informed them of this power. They also believe that the intelligence is in the vine, not in the leaves. The leaves provide a kind of force to break through the human consciousness, but the intelligence is in the vine. The shamans believe that the spirit possesses and inhabits that vine. So the vines and leaves are cooked together in water and boiled down, often to a very nasty and sticky substance with bits of vegetable matter in it. And you end up with this fall-looking liquid, red, or almost black in color, which is the ayahuasca brew. Over the last decade or so, ayahuasca has become widely known around the world for its remarkable and healing properties. For those who haven't experienced it, the paintings of Pablo Amaringo give a sense of the visionary realm that one enters under ayahuasca. The seamlessly convincing enchanted realm where trees, animals, everything is sentient and full of life. And there's a very insistent message in ayahuasca. It's one of those universals that almost everyone who drinks the brew sooner or later reports. It's about the sacred, magical, enchanted nature of all creation. And you can find this all around the world. These experiences are not local, they are universal experiences. There's a life review in ayahuasca, which is why you often hear people crying in ayahuasca sessions. You get to see episodes from your life where you may have been hurtful or unpleasant to another person. And you get to see it from that other person's point of view. That's why they say that ayahuasca is 20 years of psychotherapy in one night. Because we protect ourselves from the pain we cause to others. And ayahuasca just strips that away. It says, this is who you are. Deal with it. It's very difficult to get rid of a lifetime of bad habits. Even from a powerful and transformatory experience. It's hard and constant work to change the bad habits. But ayahuasca does show you the way, and it's this life review aspect that's one of the reasons why ayahuasca is so incredibly successful at getting people off addictions to truly harmful and dangerous hard drugs. Heroin and cocaine addicts, for example, have had astonishing success with ayahuasca. Clearly, we cannot buy into the propaganda of the war on drugs, which tells us that any society that takes these substances is going to fall to pieces. Then how did the Maya create the most incredible, amazing architecture, when there's no doubt that visionary substances were central to their culture? As witnessed by the various Maya mushroom stones showing Psilocybe mexicana. They venerated the psilocybe mushroom. And nearby the Maya region we find the Olmecs, a predecessor culture. In a sense, the Olmecs are the ancestors of the Maya, and there's evidence that they also venerated visionary plants and substances. Research has been done with people who were given a dose of LSD or DMT and put in an MRI scanner to witness the changes taking place in the brain. All the while, the person in the MRI scanner is reporting seeing extraordinary visions. An entity with the head of a bird and the feet of a duck but the body of a human being is speaking to them about the meaning of life. A volunteer in an experiment in the 1960s met one of those entities and was asked to paint it. Since he could draw, he made a drawing of the entity, and what we see is a man in a modern business suite but with the head of a fox. Which reminds us so much of the Lion Man and Bison Man from the painted caves, that it began to raise the question whether this cave art was inspired by similar agents. Indeed, this is now the mainstream academic view. Specific characteristics of cave paintings, like the presence of certain distinctive patterns and those therianthropes, those beast men, suggest that this was an art of visions. David Lewis Williams of the University of Witwatersrand has for a long time argued that it's the work of prehistoric shamans who had experienced altered states of consciousness. In Williams' view, this neuropsychological origin of the imagery explains its universality, the fact that we find it all around the world. Until the rise of Christianity brought an end to them in the 4th century AD, the Eleusinian Mysteries had been a centerpiece of ancient Greek culture for at least 1,000 years. These festivals were celebrated in Eleusis every year to honor Demeter and Persephone, the goddess of agriculture, and her daughter. According to Cicero, the Eleusinian Mysteries are Athens' most excellent and divine gift to the world. Plato and Socrates were also among the greats who participated, while Sophocles wrote,
"Thrice happy are those mortals who, having seen these rites, depart for Hades. For them alone is granted to have a true life there."
And Pindar tells us,
"Happy is he who, having seen these rites, goes below the hollow earth. For he knows the end of life, and he knows its God's head's beginning."
In other words, an experience was being undergone at Eleusis which banished the fear of death. What could that experience have been? We understand that the initiates who went to Eleusis were given a beverage to drink. It was called the kykeon. The research that has been done on this kykeon tells us that the beverage included barley upon which grew Claviceps paspali, which is a non-poisonous form of ergot containing LSD-like visionary alkaloids. Psychoactive mushrooms may also have been in play. So in other words, the beating heart of ancient Greece, which drew its pilgrims from all over the world, was essentially celebrating a psychedelic rite. So when we condemn these substances, we should remember that the ancients held a different view. No one should be surprised to find the use of hallucinogenics at the heart of so many advanced ancient civilizations. In fact, psychedelics appear to have played a key role in the emergence of modern human behavior. From the last common ancestor with the chimpanzee to the appearance of anatomically modern humans some 200,000 years ago, not very much happens in this regard. We invent the first stone tools about 2.5 million years ago. By about 400,000 years ago, fire was used habitually. And then suddenly, long after we've become anatomically modern humans, we start producing this incredible art that appears all over the world. The oldest art in Europe is about 40,000 years old. The oldest cave art in Indonesia is of the same age. There are astonishing similarities as well, connecting these different cave art traditions. It's as though a light has been switched on in the human brain, all over the world. Interestingly enough, as our ancestors switched on symbolically and start manifesting altered states of consciousness art, this is also the moment that the human race takes a huge leap forward in the way we behave, our evolution. It's not the hardware. The anatomically modern hardware has been in place for maybe 200,000 years. It's software. Something has happened that has transformed our behavior. Our hunting practices, tools, spiritual ideas. We start burying our dead with grave goods, food, and water. That means we believe that some aspect of the individual survives death, which is a new idea. It certainly is the most significant change in the whole evolution of human behavior. And while it would be hard to prove scientifically that this change was caused by psychedelics, at the very least it did correlate with evidence of its use. So let's take a fresh look at the ancient art from all around the world. Psychedelics may have played a much bigger role in the story of civilization than has been recognized so far. So it's reasonable to wonder, why is our society so rabid about consciousness-altering drugs and plants? Why are we upset about the subject, particularly where psychedelics are concerned? What is it that those in power are so afraid of? Why have we been subjected to 50 years of propaganda in the war on drugs? Human civilization has been around for a very long time. In that sense, our society, which we're so proud of, is a very recent thing. And Western technological society even more so, a mere pixel in the larger image of human civilization. And we are very wrong to conclude that what we think is always automatically right, and that everybody else in the past was wrong. We may have some lessons to learn from the past. Nowadays, it's a serious criminal offense to possess psychedelics. Like for instance DMT, whether it's in a smokable form or as part of the ayahuasca brew. People are being jailed for using ayahuasca. Yet DMT is actually a natural brain hormone. We all have it, so we're all illegal, every one of us. Its function remains unknown though, due to a lack of research. Obviously our society is not opposed to altered states of consciousness as such. We allow big pharma to make billions of dollars every year from drugs that alter the mind, usually in incredibly boring and harmful ways. Many different states of consciousness are available to us. But what our society seems to value most is not what we call the alpha wave state of consciousness, but rather the alert, problem-solving state of mind. Of course there's nothing wrong with that state of consciousness, it has its place. But in our society, it has been elevated to an over-monopolistic position. It's gotten out of balance and has become the dominant state of consciousness. Alcohol and antidepressants are tolerated it seems, because they do not challenge that state of mind. Antidepressants allow you to carry on producing and consuming, while alcohol also gives you a short holiday from that state of consciousness. So they are venerated. Psychedelics, on the other hand, do lead to questioning of the established control system of society, as anybody who has experienced them fairly extensive will know. People start questioning everything. Is that what our elites are really afraid of? Or is it just about profiteering? Maybe we should look to the shamans. We need to go back to places like the Amazon and see what it is that they can teach us. We're so used to teaching them, but what do they have to teach us? These uncontacted tribes, in remote regions where an ancient flame has been kept burning for thousands and thousands of years. If you'd ask the shamans about the sickness of the West, what they say is very simple. We in the West have severed our connection to the other realm, we've lost our connection with spirits. And if we do not reconnect, we're going to bring the whole house of cards down, on our heads and everyone else's. But the remedy those shamans propose is a controversial one. It is ayahuasca.